We'll join Katherine Terrell, our friend from theathletic.com/New Orleans. She's on Twitter at @Cat_Terrell. On this, the day when NFL free agency officially begins as the league year is underway. How are you, Kat?
I'm surviving. How are you?
I'm doing great. What are you doing to pass the time?
I'm just running laps around my apartment,
Oh,
trying to
that's
stay in
good.
shape. That's not what I'm doing.
Oh.
I'm sitting on my couch watching TV and monitoring Twitter.
All
Really
right.
exciting stuff, let me tell you.
What, with regards to Twitter and the NFL today, is the most interesting thing you've seen?
Today?
Mm-hmm.
The Malcolm Jenkins news? Is that interesting? That's interesting, right?
I think that's interesting because that's certainly the big news for the Saints. Do you interpret that? We'll talk about Malcolm in a second. Do you interpret that as they're done with Vonn Bell?
Yes, I do. Actually, when I saw he wasn't going back to the Eagles yesterday, I immediately thought, I wonder if he's going back to the Saints. But I wasn't sure that was going to happen, but I guess things happen fast in the NFL.
So what do you think went awry with Vonn Bell, being that he's a younger, still productive player?
I just think the Saints are at a point where they could take him or leave him. I think that they wanted him back at their price point, and I don't know what that is. I think it's interesting. I don't think I've seen much about him going to another team, except I think the Panthers were interested. So it could be one of those situations where I've seen this happen all the time. The player overestimates their market. They tell the team they want more money, and the team says, well, too bad, and they move on to another player, and then that player is kind of left without a chair, so to speak, in musical chairs. So it could happen to him. I don't know. It happened to Darqueze Dennard with the Bengals a year or two ago, and he had to settle for a deal that he probably didn't want. So we'll see what happens.
It happened to Mark Ingram last year.
Yeah, well, that was interesting. I still don't really know why that went down the way it did, but it happens way more than people think.
Yeah. So aside from Malcolm Jenkins, I guess the other news would be the Saints re-signing their own. Thoughts on Kiko Alonso returning?
I thought that was a situation where he was always going to have to take a pay cut if he wanted to stay. The Saints like him, but he's now had 3 ACL issues. He didn't play as much as anyone would have wanted last year. When he did play, he played very well, but then he had the quad issue that turns into the ACL issue. So he just couldn't come back at over a $7 million cap hit. So I think that they're reducing his salary, and it's kind of a wait-and-see game to see how he comes off that ACL. But probably the best-case scenario for both of them, the way it worked out.
Katherine Terrell's with us on Twitter at @Cat_Terrell, theathletic.com/New Orleans. David Onyemata is the other player, the Saints player that they re-signed. Any surprise that he maybe didn't command a bigger dollar contract on the open market?
I'm a little surprised. Sorry, I just put my headphones in, so hopefully you can still hear me.
You're good. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, good. The interesting thing is that there have no contract numbers leaked yet. And usually with free agency, the longer it takes for a contract to leak, the more it means that the agent did not get the deal that they were seeking. So I find that very interesting, and I find it interesting that he didn't command a higher salary from somewhere else. I thought he was a player that could price the Saints out. I thought Vonn Bell might, and I thought Andres Pete might, because there's just no quality guards out there. So I haven't heard anything about Pete either, which is kind of surprising. I know he's had his ups and downs with the Saints, but when you have a position where there's just not that many guys out there that can play well, sometimes teams tend to overpay.
Any surprise at all to see Eli Apple out in Vegas?
No, because I was told that the Saints were pretty much just ready to move on. They love Janoris Jenkins. The only problem there is, and they don't really view it as a problem, is his $11 million cap hit this year. I think they're okay with that if that's what it comes to. I think they are okay with rolling with, the off-the-field issues that he's had. They don't seem too concerned. They said they've done their due diligence. So I think basically the writing was on the wall as soon as he was picked up. So, I mean, I'm not surprised that Eli Apple is already signed elsewhere.
What's the biggest remaining need for the Saints in that's realistic that they could address in free agency?
Well, the two biggest needs as it stands now are wide receiver and linebacker. But I'm not going to say it's unrealistic to address wide receiver in free agency. I think it's more realistic they're going to draft someone at that position. I think they could still pick up a linebacker. They were really high on Jamie Collins. He, I guess, priced them out. I find it interesting because his deal is not that much more than Demario Davis's deal a few years back. So they went after him. I think they'll still go after someone else. So that would be the next signing I would expect to see, and then maybe pick up a wide receiver when the draft comes around.
Do you think that linebacker and or wide receiver could happen in the short, like this first wave of free agency? Because, Kat, it seems like every year the Saints do make that one like first day of free agency splash. And then it kind of cools for a while, and then they come back later. And like last year, they added Malcolm Brown late, and they added Jared Cook. Do you anticipate they'll make a splash today, or is that Malcolm Jenkins?
Well, it's so weird. Now that they've added this negotiating window, by the time free agency opens, all of the splash free agents are kind of gone.
Right.
Outside of a few. So it's almost as if whoever they sign at this point, it wouldn't be a huge splash. But I think linebacker would be more realistic. I think the money being thrown around for receiver was kind of crazy in the last day or two. So that one I would say probably going to take a few days. But like you said, they always do something that surprises everyone. And now they've kind of refigured their cap and made their necessary pay cuts and restructured some contracts. So I don't know exactly how much room they have, but I know that they've done the things they need to do in order to sign people.
A couple more for you. Among this gigantic list of free agents, some notable, like you mentioned, Andres Peter or Vonn Bell, P.J. Williams is still out there. And then some others that maybe aren't as noteworthy, be it a Keith Kirkwood, Austin Carr. What do you suspect? Which players do you suspect the Saints really would like to keep? Would they like to come to terms with to keep on the roster?
I think that they addressed a lot of the major ones. I'm trying to think. I don't think they'll re-sign Ted Ginn. I just don't think at his age he's the same player. I think maybe Pete, if they can come to a price that's not crazy. P.J. Williams maybe on a one-year deal, but I'm not really, unless I'm just missing someone obvious while I'm trying to go through it in my head, I don't really see any huge must guys. It seems like they already accomplished that with, getting Breeze done, getting Onyemata done, tendering Taysom. Man, I can't speak today. So I don't really see any must guys left, really.
You did bring up Pete, and this is kind of developing interesting. So the team you used to cover, the Cincinnati Bengals, today signed Xavier Su'a-Filo, an offensive guard. That was a team that clearly was looking for help on the offensive line of free agency, and they went with someone not Andres Pete. Am I misreading it to say maybe the market isn't there for Pete, and he may end up back in New Orleans anyway at a lower price?
Oh, I definitely think he could. I think Pete was too inconsistent to have a huge market, but I think that the lack of good guard play might have changed that. But that's basically why I thought Pete could outprice them, just because these teams get desperate and they start to look at these players in a new light and overpay them like other teams, not their own teams necessarily. So, hey, if he doesn't have a market, I think the Saints would probably re-sign him. The problem is they weren't very happy with how Larry Warford played last year. They had Nick Easton who could replace Pete, but I think they need one more guy there to have some depth. So I could see that going either way.
All right, last thing for you. Tom Brady's in the division. What do you think of that?
I think that's going to make for some pretty fun games next year. Hopefully the season starts on time. I miss football already.
I know.
But I could see a primetime game between the Saints and the Bucs now. That would be fun. Hey, it's fun to get to cover these guys. And watching Brady and Brees play against each other, hey, that's pretty awesome.
Tom Brady against Drew Brees. We'll also see Teddy Bridgewater in Carolina. The quarterback position in the division right now, is this the best quarterback division in football?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Now there's musical chairs that's been played the past couple of days, but I mean, you could, I guess, look at the AFC West. By default, Mahomes is there, and we still have to see what the Chargers elect to do. But, I mean, I don't know what else really qualifies. The NFC North?
Yeah, maybe. NFC North has, Rodgers, but I feel like a lot of times that quarterback play outside of that is kind of average.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly fun. I just want to see how Petty does away from the Saints, because I feel like while he did everything that was asked of him and they won the games, most importantly, a lot of times those games were won because other units stepped up. So I want to see what Bridgewater does with an offense that is tailored to him, and if he succeeds and becomes great, or if it kind of looks like he did in some of the games in the fall. And hey, I hope he does well, because he's a great guy, and we're all going to miss him around the locker room. But I'm very curious. They invested a lot of money in him, so we'll see what Joe Brady can do, I guess.
It's a lot of money to invest in a guy that's never thrown more than 14 touchdowns in a season. But we, like you said, we're all wishing Teddy very well, except for the 2 games a year when he's going to play New Orleans. Katherine Terrell,
Right.
theathletic.com/New Orleans. Again, on Twitter, @Cat_Terrell. Give her a follow, Cat with a K, of course. And we'll talk soon. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks for having me, as always.